What's up, broadcasters? Welcome back to another episode of Branding Banter, your promo podcast where you can get all the nerdy news you need to know about. My name is Jeff Franklin, National Accounts Manager with Headwear USA.
I'm Meg Erber, Director of Sales of Proforma.
I'm Sarah Goshgarian Unruh, National Sales Manager. Sorry, y'all threw me off this morning.
Fair enough.
Special guest today.
Yep. Very special guest today, Christopher mckim from 4 Over, and we're excited to have you on. But Chris, why don't you give us just a quick rundown of who you are and maybe how you got started in the industry?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is my 38th year in print. I started when I was 18 because I thought it was a pretty cool thing to do. I really wanted to be a pressman at first, so didn't go that route. Ended up going to Cal Poly University in San Luis Obispo. Go Mustangs, studied print there. So print has been a passion of mine for a long, long time. And I currently coach and lead an enterprise sales team at 4 Over. We're a national wholesale provider of, over 1 million different product configurations of printed materials.
I don't know if you saw my face there, but we finally have somebody, maybe this is the second person in 6 years that went to school to be in our industry.
That's true.
My face that. So we've been asking every guest that we've had for the last 6 years, how did you get your start in this industry? 99.7% of them literally have said, I either fell into it like magically or I was born into it. And I think it was maybe one or two other people that we've had on the show that actually went to school, and that's rarity. So we have the actual expert. None of us misfit. You're an actual expert.
Well, I guess if you stick around long enough, Meg, you become an expert, right?
Yeah. Fine.
So today's episode, you'd mentioned print, Christopher, and that's what we're going to talk about today. We want to talk about sort of mastering or at least introducing print into your offerings, because I think a lot of promo people have kind of either shied away from it or haven't really dabbled with it too much because they're worried for whatever reason. I know it's certainly different. Margins are different, quantities are different, but a lot of the buyers, I believe, are pretty much the same in a lot of cases. So it makes sense to have that offering, and so we appreciate you coming on to sort of share your expertise, and super excited to launch into it. So. You said that you basically started doing print, or how did that work? Because you do offer both, yes or no?
We are primarily a print supplier. Okay. So when you think about everyday marketing, that's business cards, postcards, flyers, brochures. Those are things that SMBs and large corporations are using all the time. We have a large segment in the display and signage areas. That's definitely a very growing area, has been for years. Lots of mailed products as well. Certainly in COVID saw double-digit increases in the usage of those kinds of materials as we all kind of moved into different places in our work and personal lives. So yeah, we are definitely a print provider.
Gotcha. Yeah, I knew the signage and stuff. I kind of figured that.
We all had questions. Sorry, go Jeff, and then you get Sarah.
Yeah, no, I was saying. So when I mentioned both, I mean, I know that signage and stuff, I feel like is a little bit more considered on the promo side, or at least people are more familiar with that kind of thing with some of the signage suppliers that are in the industry. But yeah, print's one of those things that they for some reason have shied away from. So yeah, go ahead, Sarah.
It's an interesting point. I know we'll get more to this, Jeff, but let me just kind of say that I think print and promo are very complementary. And just by what you had just said, I had always associated signage and displays with print. So it's interesting to hear your perspective is, that's more of a promo product. And I think understanding that can really help us bridge that gap that we think is between print and promo, and it probably isn't there as much as we think it is.
Yeah, sure. That's a great point. That's a really great point. It's just, I think, a difference of perspective. And I was going to go into segue right into that. And when you hear that first, you're like, I can't sell print. what do you say? Because I know you hear that all the time. Oh, I don't know anything about print. I'm scared. What's your first reaction when people say that to you?
For me,
Yeah.
Meg,
Yeah.
my first reaction is why not? Because you're talking to people. When I think about promo, and I'm going to tell you, I'm not a super expert in the places where you all are experts, but when I think about it, the places that I see it are something to do about brand, something to do about an event, something to do about some level of engagement. Lately, a lot of that has been employee engagement. So when I think of those places where promo is really strong, it naturally leads me to that question of, well, why not? Because print complements and has a space inside of all of those. And do I, if I'm a sales rep, do I want more or less arrows in my quiver? I'll take
Exactly.
More. Oh, for sure. Yeah. I think I'm going to put my distributor hat back on. I think a lot of times distributors fall into like offering print because somebody says, hey, can you offer like a postcard along with this kitting package that you're putting together? Like, is there some messaging? Or like, hey, do you happen to do business cards? Because we don't really have anybody who does business cards. So I feel like it kind of falls unpredictably into the lap of a distributor a lot of times. And I feel like those pieces are kind of like entry points, if you will, inside of like the print industry, because wow, the print industry is just so big when you say that. And so I think that is part of what scares people is like, when you say print industry, I think a lot of people think beyond postcards and business cards.
Fair point, Sarah. I think sometimes we just need to talk ourselves out of the scale that we're thinking about and just say, look, it's really no different. If I think about the promo spaces, there are a lot of products, there are a lot of options, there are a lot of ways that people execute those products, and print has a similar but different track along that. So I think if you can get to one, you can definitely get to the other.
For sure. So when you think about selling like print versus promo, what are the key differences, would you say, between selling the two?
I think print defines products a little more specifically, a little more deeply. So for instance, if I'm talking about a business card, which is a very entry level product, I have to consider the inks. Is it one-sided or two-sided? Are we talking about 4-color process, or are we talking about something where it's a match color or something? Distributors might hear the word Pantone. Is it have any coating on it, meaning something that's clear, but it's a protectant, or it's something that's going to enhance. What kind of substrate is it on? Is it, and we can kind of use terms like heavy or thin, but in the print industry, we're also specifying something that is 12 point or 16 point or 100-pound cover, or those kinds of things. And I think that's a big difference in how you're going to specify a product.
I'm kind of giggling because I remember the first time I went to go order print, and those terms that you just said of like 12 point, 16 point, the poundage of paper, I was like, I don't know, like cardstock, like I don't know what that is, right? So yeah, so I'm giggling as you're saying that, because I was like, gosh, it took a while in order to figure out really what we were looking for. So
I will say 4over has a great website, like so many resources, so many templates, and you have vector templates, which I love, with the bleeds, and they really make it so easy. Matter of fact, I was just looking for it because I totally forgot. I should have had it ready. My daughter's having a baby shower in a couple weeks. So of course, I'm going to do the invitations. I literally went on, did the invitations, envelope, and then like the diaper raffle and the book thing. I did it all, and I got it in 2 days. I literally had it in 2 days, and they were beautiful. It was like a professional did them or something.
Well, that's high compliment. Thank you, Meg. Yeah, I would say it two ways. I'm going to tell you what Meg said, which is Forover believes very strongly that we work with resellers only. So I'm not reaching out to end users. I'm going to work with a distributor, and I want to make that distributor comfortable, confident, and successful. So I do have a lot of resources on the website to make things very predictable and repeatable. Even if you don't use a company like us, I would definitely say, Sarah, no one's going to understand 12 and 16 point. In a lot of ways, you may not even need to. But what I would say is to get physical samples is going to make that conversation with your customer a lot more fruitful. They're going to touch it and feel it. And you can just say, do you like this one or do you like that one? And you'll know what they are. You don't have to overcomplicate it by using that print terminology, but you could certainly understand it to a degree yourself, and then really rely on a company like us to walk you through it.
Yeah, I think the similarities, right, between promo and print in that case are, are on point, because it is one of those things we always say, like, if we can get the product inside of a customer's hand to touch it and feel it, that is the best way in order to make the sell, right? And so to your point, it helps bridge that gap between the terminology from a print perspective, because then even when you get into finishes, right, like if you want it glossy, or if you want it matte, or if you want it pearl, or all of the things that are available out there, metallic, I mean, I feel like it just keeps growing. So touching and feeling and seeing the samples is the best way in order to get your customers to be on the same page as you, and even to help you in the process of purchasing. So what are
Real quick, I just want to show you how well these came out. Like the quality, the quality. I mean, it was so good, and it just. I'm sorry, I had to brag about it because it was just so good, and that's all. I just wanted to show you. Go ahead.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Meg.
Oh, they look great. They're fantastic. I was going to talk about successful print campaigns, because I feel like nowadays, I'm not really quite sure. And to your point, Chris, you said earlier, is that business cards, right, are like your entry levels. So like, what are successful print campaigns that you have seen at Forover?
Lately, I think the areas that kind of hit my radar of where my reps are out talking to key customers kind of fall into maybe two or three categories. One is certainly mailed products. So there is something called EDDM. Think of it as direct mail postcards, but I don't need a list, and my postage is flat rate. And it goes to every house on a certain carrier route that is defined by the Postal Service, right? So it's super simple, but it's getting those messages into mailboxes, into consumers' hands really easily. And people have, done this in the medical areas. They've done it in retail spaces. We've got Black Friday coming up. So if you think about your local businesses, those are great places to start, because people are going to want to attract people into their locations, into their storefronts. And EDDM is a great tool.
That's a great idea. I didn't even think about that, honestly. The one thing that came to mind for me is that we do these boxes, essentially these kits that will either go out to your customers or your prospects that we put together for our franchise owners. And in every box, we're going to have 3 different things minimum: at least a piece of apparel, at least a hard good, and a piece of print. There's going to be more in there, but we want to make sure we're touching all 3 avenues, so that when the prospect or the customer receives that box, they know exactly what options they have. I'm like, oh, I didn't know that you did these postcards or these flyers, or oh, I didn't know you had these T-shirts. Because when you're selling somebody, and if your customer is only calling you for pens, you're the pen guy. You are literally the pen guide to your customer. If you don't have that relationship, so when you're reaching out and you're sending them something, you're adding a really nice piece of print that, maybe it's a case study or a spec sample that you're doing in their name, you should always add a piece of print, because I know we might get into this if there's time, but the print industry to the promo industry, what is it, like 8 to 1, Chris? Like the amount of money that's there, like you are leaving so much money on the table if you are not offering print to your customers. Same with apparel, same with promo, but we were talking about print today. So if you were only selling promo headwear, bags, whatever, you need to be offering print because they're all buying it. They're just not buying it from you.
So Meg, since you mentioned the dollar volume and how much more print there is to promo, do you mind, Chris, if we get into like margins a little bit? Because I think that's one of the big things that a lot of people have sort of maybe refrained from getting into print for, is because they don't either have the right sources or they can't compete. Because there are a lot of commercial printers that do go direct to end users for printing needs. And when I think print, I think stationery and business forms and postcards and all kinds of like business cards and things like that. So folders even. So is it possible to compete with some of the commercial printers that are going direct, and what kind of margins do people need to consider working on when doing that?
I think it's absolutely possible. I mean, at the end of the day, we're talking about building relationships where people know, like, and trust you, right? It's sales 101. When I think about margins, it really spans where we're going to be different in print than maybe promo is. There might be some MSRPs more so published in promo that you don't see in print because it really can vary so much from region to region, from product to product. But I'll give you a few examples. Typically, since we're serving distributors, 40 points, not uncommon. But when we talk about certain programs, like a business card program, I'm not going to put 40 points on that. I'm going to at least double it. And what I'm really kind of seeking there is, I also don't want to be the one business card guy. I want to talk to a company that, maybe has a bank of employees and we can build this relationship together. I can share with them some technology, all of those things, so that it's not one order, it's many orders over a period of time. That's a good way to help something like that blossom, because a business card probably is going to retail generally somewhere around $50. That's not going to be super attractive to a lot of people out there, but 50 times 100, that happens, multiple times throughout a year or two, that's now starting to get my attention a little bit differently.
Yeah, I agree. We talked about this earlier. We were like, the business cards versus other big things, and then the quantities, because they're super large quantities a lot of times when it comes to print. So, we were just kind of trying to figure that out ourselves and compare it to business cards, just internally on the backside, trying to figure it out.
So we just last week, there was a distributor that reached out to us, and we closed a $40,000 piece of business. I know he's going to sell that piece of business for $80,000.
Oh, wow.
That's awesome. Good for them.
Right. So, and so that's the scale of places where you can go. And it basically, you're managing one thing, and this is going to happen 100,000 times, but that's what I'm doing. You're not worried about the 100,000. You're worried about the one piece of art and the one relationship.
So is that one product, or is that over a span of multiple products?
That's one product. That's
wow. What was the product? Can you say?
Yeah. It was a postcard. I take that back, Jeff. And now that I think about it, it was two pieces. This is actually a great testament to print and promo, because it was a kit. It was something around political, but it was going to be fulfilled. It was going to have a couple of pieces in it, but what we were primarily producing was a postcard that was going inside this kit, very much like what you said, Meg.
Nice. Love it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're almost out of time. I want to ask you, what are the 3 top product considerations for somebody who doesn't sell print that absolutely should add to their offering?
I would look at things that feel very much like promo. So I would definitely look at signage and displays.
Okay.
I would look at embellished products. So think about, hey, I've got a raised surface. Maybe it's shiny and UV. Maybe it's foil and kind of catches my eye. So things of that ilk. And that's business cards, postcards. It can be presentation folders that have that on them. what else would I do? I mean, I'm really keen on mailed products right now because I think it goes everywhere. I don't think people are sitting in their offices as much. They're sitting at a home office. They're in other locations, and there's a lot of attractiveness to those kinds of things.
You know, one thing that go ahead, Sarah.
No, on the mail things, I was going to say, I have to ask the question because I'm sitting here spinning. EDDM, what does it stand for?
It stands for Every Door Direct Mail.
Thank you.
Oh.
I was trying in my mind and I'm like, all right, I can't figure out this acronym for the life of me. So thank you. Every Door Direct Mail. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the one thing that I used to always buy from 4Over, so I used to sponsor an MMA fighter who ended up in the UFC. I used to always do his banners, his fight banners, like the big ones that would go up on the cage. And they were just so easy to do, and it was just very good price too. So that was one thing that, like, they're very easy to do. They're very inexpensive to do, and people use them for everything, like grand openings, just fights, like anything, like any type of event, outside, inside. You can hang these anywhere. The mesh banners, the other ones, the fabric ones, the grommets, like it's so easy. So I would say add that one too, because everyone's using those banners and it was a really easy sell.
Absolutely. The other area that I saw was around home services, and we did a really, really nice project for Coroplast signs that were going into yards after some home services had been done.
Yeah.
And I know that those same companies are using promo. They're using apparel. They're using things that are, leave behinds. So hard goods. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a good crossover.
These roofing companies. Yeah. Landscaping. Like I'm thinking, yeah, of what I've seen in my neighborhood. So
yeah.
Think about them.
Yeah, it's definitely a nice complementary offering if you're already selling promo. I personally, I've seen a lot of, print companies get into promo, and I've seen a lot of promo companies get into print, but I haven't really seen anybody really excel at it. So hopefully today's episode will be able to shed some light on that and get some more people into it and have some good success with it. So certainly the numbers you're talking about, Chris, would get a lot of people excited, I think. So.
One last question, Chris. If people want to reach you or they want more information about 4Over, where can they go, or where should they go?
Yeah, absolutely. So start at 4over.com. Because we service distributors, you won't see a lot underneath that, but you'll get a sense for some of the categories that we offer. I would reach out to customer service at 4over.com. And you'll also see a registration link at 4over.com to sign up for an account. It's the easiest way. There's no obligation, and it allows you to open up this world of print, poke around a little bit. Certainly, if me or my team can be helpful, I am mckim at 4over.com. I do travel a fair amount, so forgive me in advance if I'm not getting back to you like lickety split. But happy to help you, and we'll start to re-engage with some webinar activity also to invite people and talk about specific product categories, and we do that usually 4 times a year.
Awesome, good to know.
Yeah,
well, thank you so much, Chris.
Thank you for all the information.
This has been great. Thank you for having me, and happy to help. If you have other questions, I'm here for you.
Sounds good. We appreciate it, and thanks for sharing your expertise. Until next time, guys, we'll be seeing you.